Hey, everybody. Welcome to another one of my Saturday mailbags, wherein I answer the listener questions, the viewer questions that have been presented to me. And we talk about basketball. And typically we do some film. And I have a special surprise. For viewers, you will see this right away. For audio listeners, I'm holding up a whiteboard, an actual board. I can draw up plays now, thanks to the generosity of my dear friend Josh Codenera. I was given an actual coach's board. So no longer using the little journal. We can draw up plays. But I also have a little film packet prepared for us to dive into Immanuel Quickley's play style, how it will fit with the Raptors once he's back, sorry. And if you're thinking this only has, I don't want to listen to this, there's a game later. You know what? The game later will not change anything said. This podcast should have a shelf life of like 3 weeks. Cross your fingers for that. Of course, we can talk a little bit about Luka. Anybody who asks us questions in the chat, the live chat, it will all be addressed. But yes, I'm Samson Folk. I'm talking basketball. The first thing I want to talk about, and thank you to the early viewers for hopping in. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, of course. Of course, thank you to audio listeners. I wanted to talk about the tank situation because what I did was I put out a tweet asking what was the last team that tanked and won. And as far as I could tell, it seemed like the Cavaliers, because the Cavaliers, they lost LeBron. They traded away some of their talent. I mean, they traded away Mo Williams, and Mo Williams became Kyrie Irving. As crazy as that sounds, what a lopsided trade. But it also seemed like they weren't too intent on winning. Now, what I found out in doing this tweet was, hey, people don't think tanking is the same thing. Like nobody thinks it's the same. There was a wide range of opinions, and in some cases, it seemed like people just used tanking as the new substitute for rebuilding, as if rebuilding isn't a thing teams do anymore. But instead, it's just like everything is tanking. If you trade your player, you're tanking. If you get worse one year, you're tanking. But for example, like the Celtics was a really good inflection point. The Jason Tatum Celtics. I didn't think, and again, feel free to disagree. This is an imperfect thing, but I didn't think the Celtics tanked. Why? Because they had one season where they lost less than 40 games. Then they immediately won a bunch of games. Like they took a deal for, KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen left, and all that stuff happened. And the Brooklyn Nets basically tanked for the Celtics, but the Celtics weren't actively trying to lose games. They lost games, but that's a rebuild, right? You're trying to rebuild. You're not as good as you were. You look at the season and say, okay, we have to try and build differently. That might be accompanied by some losses, but tanking is a whole other thing. Ian McKay here in chat says Golden State Warriors tanked in 2020 and they won in 2022. Top pick James Wiseman was incredibly important, providing Curry with numerous refreshments off the bench. This is another thing too. The Warriors, did the Warriors tank? Or was Klay Thompson have a torn ACL and his wrist blew up and they just didn't have any of their good players? Is that tanking? How did that come out? Did they tank and win, or did they, just have a bad season, draft James Wiseman second overall, and have him contribute basically nothing to their championship? It's tough to say. Now, I don't know the rules. I'm a yapper right now, but I have looked at the top 4 teams of last year as far as the draft odds. I wanted to kind of poke around on this. I could have done some more work and looked at like all the way down, but as far as I could tell, by the 23rd game in the season last year, because the top 4, I guess, draft odds were the Wizards, the Pistons, the Blazers, and the Hornets. Of course, I believe the Hawks made the jump from 10th to number 1. Cross your fingers, Raptors fans. That's what happens this year. But the Wizards were 3-20 by the 23-game mark. The Pistons were 2-21 by the 23-game mark. The Blazers were 6-17. Very well could be that the Raptors are very close to that, obviously. And that Blazers team went on to tank as nobody in their roster played more than 2,000 minutes in that season. Just everybody was in and out of the lineup. They didn't have health. They didn't have consistency, nothing. And like even Shaedon Sharpe, the great young hope of that team, only played like, I think 30 games, maybe 32. The Hornets were 7-16. Sound familiar? Raptors. But LaMelo at the end of that season was 15th on the Hornets in total games played. So, what I thought was the only way the Raptors can possibly tank is with interference. The only way they can lose to get into this bottom four, because they may very well lose tonight to a very good Dallas Mavericks team, fresh off a finals appearance. They lost to the best team in the league. Well, second, Boston, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They lost to the Thunder, a fantastic team. Does that mean that we're looking at a team that's about to free fall? Probably not. They're trending in the right direction. Their offensive indicators have been more positive. Their defensive indicators have been really positive. So, what needs to happen for this team to lose? Marcus Aurelius in chat says the 76ers will pass the Raptors in the next 4 games, with games against the Bulls, Hornets, and Indiana. Sure, could be possible. But again, we have to identify what is this current Raptors team doing, or I guess Marcus Aurelius says this same team had 1 3-game winning streak all last season. No point in playing. Well, I know some people say this. This is basically my thought process is like wanting a draft pick is fine, but also is the team compatible with seeking the top pick? Is Scottie Barnes and RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl and Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, are all these guys that once they're healthy going to tank? Are they going to lose games? Like, are they going to figure out how to work themselves to the very bottom of the league? I feel like no. Now, as a fan, you can, of course, say, hey, I want the higher pick. Somebody in the comments on the tank thing said, like, if the Raptors don't tank the next 2 years, they're doomed to mediocrity for the next 5, 8 years. So that's not just like this year, but that's also next year. Just tank, be at the bottom. Scottie Barnes, is he playing? Is anything happening? It's like, what's going on? It's tough. Marcus Aurelius in chat says Scottie Barnes or RJ Barrett are not even number 2 scoring options. They can't take anyone off the dribble to create their own shot. This is all just, you're throwing stuff at the wall here. The point is whether the Raptors are like on the path to a championship. I don't think they are. Are they bad enough to just fall to the bottom of the league? I think probably not. That's kind of where we're at. That's why I'm interested in this, is like there's such a wide ranging of opinions on tanking. And also you look at, and this is why I asked it, who has tanked and won? And what does it look like? Did they draft their best player? I looked at the past, 20 years. How many top 5 picks won a finals MVP on the team that they were drafted by? It was Jaylen Brown, and I believe it would have been, Dirk wasn't a top 5 pick. There was another top 5 pick. Neither was, LeBron won it after leaving the Cavs. Yeah. Luca says, without Yak, they can be a bottom 5 team. Well, but Yak is there. He had a stomach bug, it's, I don't know. It's weird to talk about players like as if they just disappear. I have trouble with that because it's like, what happens to them? Right? Without Yak. Okay. Where is Yak going? Do you think they actually are going to invent an injury for Jakob Poeltl or Scottie Barnes? I'm just like, this is why, because I see the conversation happening all the time, Well, Lucas says more of an idea if they rest him, but what do you say there? They punish that stuff now. And you can't just say oh, it's rest for what? So he plays 30 games this year? What happens? This is why it's not a fully fleshed out conversation. I feel like you need to build the proper parameters with what is and isn't tanking, what is and isn't allowed, because I think tanking and getting high draft picks is seen as this, elevated, high-minded solution, but nobody really talks about the pathway there includes just completely disposing of players, and players don't like that, and that's why teams that go on full on tank typically have trouble. The Thunder, of course, have a chance to rewrite all that. But even they traded for the 11th overall draft pick, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the Thunder, nobody would care about their tanking if they didn't have Shai. This is why I'm confused by all of it, because people talk about tanking like it's such an easy path. You're going to be great. Probably not true. The same way that if you keep and stay on the treadmill, you're probably not going to be great. I think my contention with it is that nothing seems certain. But one path is talked about as if it is certain. If you tank, you'll be really good. Maybe. Maybe not. And if you don't tank, like, oh, you're fostering a winning culture, it'll come around, development. I don't think so. It's tough to build a winning team. Ian McKay in chat says it's a balance between development and bringing talent, a very tough balance to strike, and still a ton of luck is needed with draft odds and picks panning out. Certainly. As far as I could tell, looking over the teams in the past however many years that have won championships and stayed at the top of the league, the biggest indicator was obviously you need elite talent. But the easiest way to get elite talent in the NBA and keep it during a championship window is through trades or free agency. As crazy as that sounds, most finals MVPs don't win, like, or top 5 pick finals MVPs, top 6 pick finals MVPs. You don't win the finals MVP with the team that drafted you. Kevin Durant didn't. LeBron James didn't. Dirk Nowitzki did, but he was 9th. Kobe Bryant did, but he was 13th. Jaylen Brown did, but that's Jason Tatum's team. I guess Jokic could have been had by every team in the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo didn't even get drafted in the lottery. What you have to be able to do is develop. And what is a really good development environment? Winning teams. How do you square this, And so I'm not trying to come at this from any point of view of like, tanking is bad. I don't think, like, I'm sure you can tank successfully. And again, there are many different ways to build a team. Many, Dwayne Caseyism, there's many ways to skin a cat. But I am a little bit, I guess, skeptical of the sure-handedness and the like self-assured tank and everything will be good ideals. Because to me, that doesn't bear out anywhere. Like that doesn't bear out. There's not a consistent through line. You can't find the historic thing for it, in my opinion. And so it's interesting. It's very interesting. What I really want to talk about today, though, is Immanuel Quickley and how he's, we can't really rate him on how he's been playing this year because he's hardly played. I mean, he's like 40 minutes or something. Well, more than 40 minutes, less than 70, let's say. But I'm pretty excited to get into this because I had a couple questions, one from the DM, one that was asked on the tweet when I asked for questions like, hey, what are they going to do with Immanuel Quickley back? You've heard it on the Pull Up Trey podcast. Myself and Trey said that we would appreciate if RJ Barrett was like the second motivator of the offense, where in years past he wasn't, or half a year past he wasn't. He was like 5th on the team in touches. His touch time wasn't very long. He touched the ball on offense about as much as Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl, significantly less than Immanuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes. And yet he was still the leading scorer. He was doing a lot with not much of the ball. This year, the touches are up and he's doing more and the efficiency is down. Now that Scottie's back, we're seeing the efficiency and the usage kind of find an equilibrium that looks quite good. I think his true shooting with Scottie back this year is around 60%. He's averaging like around 23 points, like around 23, 6 and 6. It's good stuff. And what I want to see is Immanuel Quickley revolve around all of that. And while he does all of that, improve at what he needs to improve at. So we'll get into, I don't like cutting lowlights of players, but we have a couple bad plays of Immanuel Quickley's, and we have a lot of good plays of Immanuel Quickley. So basically, Immanuel Quickley, we're going to talk about why he's so good off ball and why he's able to step right in. And if he moves off the ball quickly, if he plays within the concept and the scheme, he'll be able to add so much to the Raptors immediately. So we got to share this screen. Let's get into it. Okay, 1 sec. Let me poke around and look at this. We have, okay. All this stuff is loading. My apologies. Okay. We have that one. And we have this one. Okay. So, yeah, let's get into it. We're going to do, let's see. We'll do the mailbag first. The mailbag film first. Okay. As Calcino says, it's film time. Let's go, everybody. Get ready to, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you won't. But yeah, we'll get into it regardless. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. As you can see, I have a harsh truth about Connor Bedard and climbing videos. You can see, I don't know how this showed up, but yeah, I watch a lot of climbing videos on YouTube. Okay, we are watching Immanuel Quickley, and this is to me why he should be so easily able to step into what the Raptors are doing. We're just going to run the play. Here it is. Look at that. just comes out of the corner perfectly easy. The Raptors are running delay. There's pistol concepts that they can run for him in early offense. He steps into the offense. It's as easy as that. Devin Vassell tries to shoot the gap. He just reroutes around the other side. This one, perfectly easy, just a double drag, and they don't really play up on him, just bangs the three. This one, and this is also funny because this happens with Grady as well. This is the Spain pick and roll. And what keeps happening when Chris Boucher is the main screener is he kind of forgets they're running the play. There's like 4 plays this year where Grady is pointing him to where to be. But Immanuel quickly tells him, like, hey, you're setting the screen. I'm the back screener. Spain leak. RJ drives it. He leaks out there. He catches, hits a 3. So these things are just so quick. They're happening so quickly, and they're how Immanuel leverages his shooting. And just to like give you some really great numbers, Immanuel Quickley, last year, as a Raptor, he shot 73% from 3 off of screens. That's really good. That's really, really good. It's not a huge sample size, but 73% from downtown off screens. Extremely well done. He shot 34% on guarded catch and shoot threes, which is good. And he shot 47% on unguarded catch and shoot threes, which is elite. This is why so much of what they do, look, he's setting the screen, going to slip out. You get just relocate, find a triple. That's an RJ possession. RJ doesn't lose that possession. Immanuel Quickley just helps enhance that, right? We get this play, right? This is just a grenade DHO into the corner. Good shooters are the ones who get grenade DHOs because it's just sprinting into the corner because teams don't want to chase you out there like that because most shooters can't run right into the corner and hit a 3. He's able to do that. Grady is another guy on the team who can do that. This one, look at this. Just enter the ball. And I like this play because this is something that the Raptors used to run for Fred VanVleet all the time. And that's because this is a Pascal play. It's a flex screen from Immanuel Quickley. It used to be Fred VanVleet to try and get a high-low entry. Scottie didn't catch the pass properly, and also he sniffs it out, so Pascal doesn't get to come in. But since they overplay Pascal on this cut, then Immanuel gets to come off of this pin down, and it's a wide-open 3 for him. Super easy plays. Like, the Raptors don't run that play really anymore, but that's just Immanuel Quickley, like a 40% three-point shooter, one of the best catch-and-shoot options in the NBA, and not a bad pull-up shooter either. I think he shot 37% on his pull-up triples last year. He's just able to bring so much. And this play, this is Decky's play. If you'll remember, Coach Decky passed away, and that's one of Darko's good friends. He was a member of the Golden State Warriors staff. This was the play they ran to honor him. Gary Trent Jr. empties out the side because they want to bring Immanuel Quickley over here. Immanuel Quickley is going to ghost this screen and then come off of a flare. Scottie Barnes is the trigger man here. The play is going to develop, and we're going to see a pass over the top. There you go. Shooter. Bang. Big shout out to Coach Decky. That's his play. He drew that up, and the Raptors ran it to honor him. And, that's just a great play. This is the – oh, actually, let's get into the drawing board quick. Okay, so Doc Russ says, can't they run that for Grady? They certainly can. They can run – Grady has been substituting in – so much of Immanuel Quickley's plays, they've been he's just stepped into so much of what Immanuel Quickley does, and he's just stepped into that role. Now, what we're gonna do is, this is shallow 77 shallow, sorry. So Scottie Barnes is right here. He has the ball, right? The Raptors, I'll do it like this. The Raptors, they're coming down. They want to score right here. The shallow cut is a play that the Raptors run to create space over here in this driving gap or to create a shot right here. A 77 or a double drag is 2 screens. Scottie's going to come across these 2 screens like this. This is IQ. What IQ does is he shallows the screen, is if nobody follows him, then he's going to be open for 3, and Scottie can make that skip pass there. Or if somebody follows IQ and the defenders follow him over there because he has so much gravity as a shooter, then that creates a lane and a true 2-on-1 for Scottie and Jakob to come attack together in the pick and roll. Now, we're going to see a variation of this play. We're going to see the Raptors run it, and you're going to see it work and see when it doesn't work. So we'll get into this. Where are we? Okay, yes. So this is shallow 77. As you can see, Jakob is already moving. Immanuel is about to move out of it. They play hard up front, and they make sure that they take care of IQ here, or sorry, Jakob here. So Scottie makes the read. IQ is open, gets a closeout, like a really advantageous one to attack, and scores. This one, as you can see, Thad is right there setting it. IQ is coming out on the other side. They play over here. He's making sure that he rubs Thaddeus. Jaren is saying, like, I have to cover the drive if it's there. Tyus was applying some pressure. And then we see the pass over top. And then Immanuel Quickley, he misses, but it's a wide open three for one of the best shooters in the league. Well, anyway, this one is where they fake it, right? So that's what's happening in this play. Immanuel Quickley, they think it's going to be a double drag, and they're gearing up for it. But Immanuel Quickley, this is a read. He can turn this into a screen. And the reason why they run the shallow so that Immanuel is catching on this side of the court, and the reason why they run flares to this side of the court is because Immanuel really likes driving to his right. And so he can pump and push to his right if he gets that aggressive closeout. So as we'll see, we'll run it. They're going to gear up for it, and he's going to turn that into a flare. He just gets to step right into a three. That's just a nice little package of plays that they get to run for Immanuel Quickley. It's good basketball, and that's why I think he can just step into, he's going to get more of the ball than RJ, I'm presuming, when he comes back. If I had to guess, he'll probably get more of the ball. That doesn't mean, that's not a value, that's not a take on, what each guy provides. But if I had to guess, we're looking at probably Immanuel Quickley having more touches than RJ, running more of the offense, if I had to guess. Now, this is like, RJ's been one of the better pick and roll ball handlers in the NBA so far. Immanuel has not. Immanuel hasn't had one season per synergy where he's been like really strong at running the pick and roll. RJ, 20 games into the season, has been such a strong player in that regard. He's given them gobs and gobs of points. Now we need to see, Marcus Aurelius in chat says the one game IQ was back, the offense looked clunky with IQ in the lineup rather than RJ handling the ball. He did. IQ held onto the ball. He had sticky hands. He didn't move the Raptors through stuff quickly. He did a lot of hovering out beyond the break, but that doesn't mean that he can't, get those things out of his style. You know what I mean? Like he can work through that. He's been a quick player in the past. He can find himself in the flow of the game. It was like the offense did slow down. That's definitely true, but IQ can bring more, and he will. He has to just get up to speed. And, I think that the Raptors have to be able to express to him, like, hey, we want to see more, like we want to see you moving the ball on quickly, and to the point of him shooting 73% from three off of screens, from him being such a great catch and shoot option. The Raptors have to look how they can maximize his numbers off the ball, because his numbers on the ball, as far as he was a middle of the road pick and roll player last year, 0.958 points per possession. That's 55th percentile. He shot 34% on his 2-point shots out of the pick and roll. That's ghastly. 34% is really bad. And a lot of it has to do with what we're going to see here. So you can see it's paused right there. We're looking at a picked up dribble. That's not even a very aggressive dig. There's not a ton of pressure here. But to continue to work this 2-on-1, he needs to maintain his dribble and get Zubac to try and take away his lane, step up so that he can make that pocket pass to Fernando, or for Zubac to step up and for him to go up top. But he picks up the ball really early, and that means that Zubac gets to have both, and that you get a rear view contest from man. It's just an early pickup, and we need to see IQ getting deeper paint touches. We need to see IQ getting deeper on the floor to try and maximize what he's out there to do. This play, okay, we're going to let it run. This misses, but I think that's a really good process. Like he obviously didn't shoot well here, but this puts him in jail, right? Hostage dribble, keeps the dribble alive, gets like lower, gets that big pickup point, those big steps into the lane, and Jakob with the Gortat screen. Dean Wade and Jared Allen come over, and the ball goes and misses. That's just like, he can make those layups. I think the process there is really, really great from Immanuel. Then we get a couple more plays here. This one, like, this is just, I wasn't sure about this one because this is the game where he had the injured UCL. So like maybe this is just weird process. I don't know when he injured his UCL, but that's like a terrible possession. We see a really great play here. Like This is and I really was wondering about this because the Cavs guarded this so unique. So we'll talk about some of the in vogue defensive plays that teams run. Like there's something called a next rotation. That's not what we're seeing here. If let's say IQ was going to the left and like you could switch across the top, you could whatever, but he goes to the right and Mobley drops out of this play completely. And it becomes up to Merrill, I believe, to step over. Why is Merrill swinging all over from the other side of the court? Like, and he points him away. He's swinging from the other side of the court to come and guard this. Like, that they weren't playing zone either was the thing. That was a very interesting defensive decision. It was like the inverse of a next rotation. And I maybe have to catch up and brush up on my European type of like rotations on defense to figure out what they were doing. But anyway, it's just like a perfectly fine step up screen from Scottie Barnes. Immanuel Quickley, again, he's a good pull up triple shooter. He's done a fantastic job. This one is like just a good pocket pass. Jakob has made this shot for so many people this year. And like, we'll go back to it. But what you'd like to see is if IQ wants to get deeper, something that Davion Mitchell does, which is why he and Jakob are one of the best pick and roll pairings in all of the NBA as far as points per chance or points per screen. Instead of just going like those closed shoulders, making that pocket pass there, he could drag everybody deeper if he uses that hop skip. You know, a lot of the best pick and roll players use a hang dribble and a hop skip, and he goes kind of early to Jakob. Of course, Jakob can make that shot, but he doesn't always. There's stuff that IQ can work on. There's stuff he'll be able to do. But as far as what IQ is able to provide, I would be really interested to see because, again, he shot 34% on twos out of the pick and roll as a Raptor. That's really low. Like, that's really low. He shot 30% off of handoffs, 37% on twos out of handoffs. You know, those are bad numbers. You want to see like way bigger numbers there. And in the pick and roll, he shot 38% on his triples. On handoffs, he shot 25%, but it was pretty low volume. Seems to me, if they want to, like, if I'm looking at this team and trying to maximize this team, I see that RJ isn't as good a shooter as Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley shoots 73% from three off of screens. He shoots 47% on unguarded catch and shoot, 34% on guarded catch and shoot. He's shooting poorly on twos out of the pick and roll. He's picking up his dribble really early. He's had trouble getting into the teeth of the paint, and a lot of his assists last year, that big boost in assist percentage that he got, I think that was reliant on the assist farm aspect of what the Raptors do, because IQ wasn't getting that many paint touches and he wasn't getting that, far in, and he wasn't creating like the best shots for his team. But the Raptors just get assists. Like Davion Mitchell had tons of assists when he was a starting guard. Dennis Schroeder had tons of assists when he was a starting guard. And Fred VanVleet had a lot of assists, but it wasn't the same coach, obviously. The Raptors, they create assists for their point guards. RJ Barrett and Scottie Barnes create a little bit differently. They create, I think, a higher quality of shots. And I don't know. Maybe that's me being biased towards what I'm seeing in the film. I don't know, but that's my take so far. With RJ being so good at driving offense in the pick and roll and struggling a little bit with his shot, I think that he'll have more space to drive. I think that he'll have better options to kick out to once IQ's back on the floor. So much of what Scottie does can be elevated by IQ being back there, of course, right? So much of what everybody does should be elevated by IQ being back there. And in my opinion, especially if IQ is playing a lot of off-ball stuff. If he screens a lot, if he's running a ton off of screens himself, if he's constantly supporting plays. Of course, he's paid $35 million a year, flat rate, going into the future. They want him to be a star guard, or at least very good, right? He has an opportunity to. Now, while I think they are going to move some of the offense towards RJ that wasn't there before, they're going to respect what RJ has done to start the year, particularly in the pick and roll. Immanuel Quickley is still going to run a ton of pick and rolls. My ideal situation for Immanuel Quickley is an uptick in that off-ball stuff, is leveraging his catch and shoot prowess more often in the offense, rather than expecting him to create off the bounce so often. And while moving some of that, still giving him a decent amount of possessions every game to work on that pick and roll prowess, to work on those types of reps. That is my ideal situation for Immanuel Quickley. The numbers do not belay somebody who is like dominant in the pick and roll, an elite driving guard. It doesn't suggest that about him. Like, he doesn't get to the rim often. And there's also a really interesting thing here about like stats, right? So as a Raptor, Cleaning the Glass had Immanuel Quickley at 58 of 83 at the rim for 70%. Great number. It was in the upper half of the percentiles, right? But also, Synergy last year had Immanuel Quickley as a Raptor at 71 of 153 for 52%. And Basketball Reference had a closer number to Cleaning the Glass than Synergy did. Synergy bases it on a little bit more, like, what is a layup? What does the shot look like? What type of shot is it, rather than just where your foot leaves the floor from? So if Immanuel Quickley jumps from 5 feet away, which, I mean, you and I have jumped from 5 feet away to try and get a layup to go in, right? That doesn't count as a layup in the database because it wasn't from 4 feet and in or 3 feet and in. It counts as a short mid-range shot. So it's, the difference between Synergy and Cleaning the Glass and Basketball Reference is really interesting, because basically it's communicating a strong driver and finisher versus a bad one. And you look at like the pick and roll numbers, as I mentioned a couple times now, 34% on twos. So that accounts for whatever's happening inside the arc. To my eye, Immanuel Quickley needs significant steps as, I guess he needs to improve at dealing with physicality. He needs to improve at like taking the extra dribble and a little bit working off of 2 feet. That's as far as I can tell. Of course, Immanuel Quickley is an extremely talented player. He's going to be good for the Raptors. I'm excited for when he comes back and how they're able to meld and mesh everybody together. But I mean, we're looking at a guy who there's tons of stuff that he can improve on, tons. And there's tons of way that the Raptors can use him to improve his efficiency and probably improve the offense overall. And there's some tough stuff that not a lot of players develop, but some players do, that he can get to at some point. The Immanuel Quickley stuff is very interesting. Vegan Grass says, is he coming back soon? I'm pretty sure Josh Lewinberg said not until mid-December at least. He didn't have surgery on the UCL. He didn't do the Tommy John thing. So, I mean, I guess he's just strengthening it. I haven't heard anything. There will be a practice this week at some point where I will ask and I'll have an update, but he's coming back at some point, and I expect it'll be in December. If I had to guess, Bruce Brown should be coming back this week. Grady is already back. Kelly Olynyk just got updated to questionable, right? I don't know if he'll play tonight. I'm not at the game tonight. I think S is. And Calcino says ESPN has his estimated return at December 19th regarding Immanuel Quickley. Thank you, Calcino. Yeah, we're kind of waiting on guys to come back, but it should be interesting because Kelly Olynyk, like, as far as his skill set, he should be able to help the offense, right? Defense, I'm not so sure. I wrote the injury presser on Kelly yesterday, and there was a comment that said that Kelly led the Jazz in deflections and steals, and that he was a better backline and like team concept defender than people thought. But I went and checked that, and that wasn't the case. Like, he was closer in steals and deflections, but you share the floor with like Chris Dunn, it's not going to be the case. And I think he was maybe sixth. Maybe they were saying per 36. They didn't communicate that, but his steals per 36 weren't so bad. His deflections actually were quite high. So if you want Kelly to be like gritty, in the weeds, digs, that kind of stuff, maybe. But I personally last year saw Kelly struggle a lot, and he didn't get to share the floor with Scottie that much. He didn't get to share it with Jakob that much. Maybe that helps a ton. The Raptors' point of attack defenders last year, I mean, they weren't good. So, maybe Kelly can reclaim something like that. But I thought he was also really poor at the Olympics defensively. It would surprise me, I think, a lot if Kelly was strong defensively. It would surprise me a lot. I would be less surprised if he was just bad. like capital B bad defensively. But he's a huge part of the culture in Toronto. As everyone's probably learning now, it seems like that trade was not for Kelly. It was very much for Kelly and Ochai. Tim Waring in chat, big shout out, Tim W says, Kelly has never been a very good defender. That's correct. I have never thought that Kelly Olynyk is a strong defender. Always trended towards a tough watch, in my opinion. But maybe there's some heady stuff for him to do, but geez, I'm not sure. Brad Farndon brings up an awesome point, says that Kelly opens up the dunker spot for JMO. That's right. I'm really interested to see what it looks like when Kelly comes back, because we watched it against the Thunder. The Raptors kind of like lose their heads when they don't have that hub to go to. They love resetting the offense to Jakob. They love being able to toss and run those get actions, to run delay every time up the floor, to run pistol concepts. Like, they love getting into the offense in that way. They're a team that's been coached and taught that, like, and especially when you look at the roster, there's not like a bunch of elite dribblers on the Raptors. Even their guards, like RJ. I've loved RJ's year. I've loved a lot of what he's done since the Raptors, but he's not an elite dribbler. Immanuel Quickley is not an elite dribbler for a guard. Scottie Barnes is pretty salvageable for a big wing, but he's not an elite dribbler either. Grady struggles a lot. This is a team that is built for running without the ball and catching with momentum, and there's not a ton of like on-ball manipulation. The best that I've seen since we got this team, since like, what is it, December 30th, when RJ and IQ joined the team, and whoever's been this year, the most manipulative dribble I've seen has been RJ Barrett. And a lot of it has to do with him manipulating for rescreens in the pick and roll and doing a pretty great job there. I should actually probably just go check his pick and roll stats quickly, just so we all know what the points per possession is, because I keep citing how good he's been. So I guess I'll just like make sure that that's a real thing, although I'm quite certain that it is. But yeah, this is a team that, like, when Kelly Olynyk comes back in, we're going to have a lot of opportunities to see them play make with guys who are not Jakob Poeltl, but instead Kelly Olynyk, who should provide that. Now, defensively, again, my hopes are not particularly high, but that's okay. He's 33. He's on the Raptors. He's doing his thing. He's our Canadian fella. He's obviously great for the culture. Guys rave about him. They talk about him so highly. That's my opinion on Kelly Olynyk. Yeah, so Synergy right now has RJ Barrett in the 89th percentile in all of the NBA as far as pick and rolls that include passes, 1.141 points per possession. For anybody who wants to know what's good points per possession, I'll tell you, 1.147, mega. Those numbers are mega. Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that can happen. And like Bruce Brown, this is a good question that, S asked, and about the mailbag question. I'll actually get into the questions that were asked now. I kind of got a little greedy and just wanted to do film on Immanuel Quickley, because I think there's a lot of plays that he can bring. So S says, you brought up this play Ochai had that was very Bruce Brown-like. How do you gauge what Brown has done in his career so far when compared to what Agbaji can be / projects to be? This is a pretty fun question. The play I brought up was that Ochai scored out of the dunker spot on a one play after he made a perfect read out of the short roll. So he set the screen, he short rolled, he got to the spot, made the play to the corner, and then the next time down, he was hanging out in the dunker spot. And that's just like running short roll playmaking, hanging out in the middle of the court, being a small cutter, which is from the time that Bruce Brown started doing it, which is kind of around Brooklyn, right? It wasn't as common to see guards in the dunker spot. Now a lot of teams do it because it manipulates the spacing in a lot of different ways. And so let's say like last year, the team that did it the most, I believe, in the playoffs were the Indiana Pacers. And of course, the Boston Celtics, who put Drew Holiday in the dunker spot all the time. The Thunder put guys in the dunker spot all the time. Isaiah Joe can be there. Lou Dort can be there. J-Dub can be there. Whoever, really. And for the Celtics, it's the same. For the Pacers, it was usually Andrew Nembhard. But what it does is if you're putting a guard in the dunker spot, you might think like, oh, it's cramping the spacing. But if you have a good star driving offense, that means that they're getting downhill typically, especially with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jason Tatum. and Pascal Siakam on the Pacers, if there's a guard in the dunker spot, who is the help? Who's the low man? A guard. For Jason Tatum, hell yeah, a guard at the rim, get dunked on, dude. He even dunks on bigs. For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, easy peasy, so easy to manipulate. And if the guy like moves up, there can be a handoff pass, or you can shoot back to the corner. Like there's a lot of good shooters that play out of the dunker spot. It's been a really unique thing that's changed. And Ochai plays in the dunker spot now, and he works the dunker spot and he plays out of the corner. He's been one of the best corner shooters in all of the NBA this season. He's been one of the best three-point shooters on lower volume than most of the best of them. But as far as percentage-wise, he's making almost 2 threes a game. He's shooting the high 40s. Hell yeah, Ochai. What can he do to be like Bruce Brown? I don't think he has the poise in the middle of the floor that Bruce Brown does. I don't think he's as clever a cutter. I think that Ochai is a little bit more straightforward of a player, a little bit closer to that 3-and-D archetype, especially now that he's making above the break threes. He's running out in transition. He's running past all of his limitations. He's been so impressive in that regard. I'll have a video essay out on Ochai. I know I've been teasing this RJ video essay. That's going to come out. Lewis wrote a fantastic Ochai piece that I'll be converting into a video essay. Both of them will come this week sometime. But Ochai has been very impressive. How do you gauge what he's done in his career so far when compared to what Agbaji can be / projects to be? I don't think they're particularly comparable. Brad Farden says 75% effective field goal on catch and shoot threes. Yeah, Ochai has just been a total rock star on the catch and shoot stuff. Thank you for that number, Brad. Ochai, I don't consider him to be very similar to Bruce, but because Bruce didn't have the shot, and Bruce has a way better handle in my opinion than Ochai. But of course, like the NBA now is trending more towards like the Bruce Brown style, right? You want more players on the court to be able to screen. You want more players on the court to be heady cutters. You want players, even guards, to be more aware of the spacing inside the arc and how to manipulate that as a guard or a small wing. And so I think that Ochai will be emulating some of what Bruce Brown does, but only because Bruce Brown was, an archetype of sorts. That there's a reason. As soon as Bruce Brown got traded, I was talking to Darko. Darko said that he studied Bruce Brown's cutting tape. When he was with the Phoenix Suns, I believe he studied. Maybe it was with the Grizzlies at that point, but he had studied Bruce Brown because he was such a unique player at the time, and Bruce Brown was so good at playing off of stars because he did all that wheel greasing stuff. Stuff that Kelly Olynyk does, stuff that Jakob Poeltl does, only in a 6'4" body. And Ochai needs to work on his screen craft. I think he needs to work on his handle and all that kind of stuff. But he's doing some of the more in vogue 3-and-D things, because 3-and-D, it's no longer just about like running to the corner. The skip pass, it's not 2012 anymore. The skip pass doesn't break defenses. It's not LeBron's league anymore. Teams have adjusted. You have to work the inside of the court with more, you have to ingenuity than ever now, and Ochai is definitely creative in how he uses himself as a cutter. Sometimes he's done a fantastic job, just so fantastic of running out in transition, but there's a lot of meat on the bone and a lot of like development, particularly of the handle, screen craft, all that kind of stuff that's not exactly easy to get good at, to catch up to Bruce. And Bruce has, if this holds for Ochai, like let's say the first 2 years of Ochai's career are the anomaly. Ochai is the guy who he was at the end of his Kansas tenure. He's, like a 40 to 43% three-point shooter. He's just like a heat pump as far as catch and shoot stuff goes. If that's Ochai, that's who he is now, then the gap between he and Bruce as shooters is about a mile wide too. So Bruce, as his career goes on, he could stand to emulate some of what Ochai does. But I am really interested to see Ochai and Bruce occupy the floor together, because there's a world where Bruce is really slick on this Raptors team, and he's making some of those reads to the corner out of the short roll that go to Ochai for those threes. We'll see. Marcus Aurelius says Bruce Brown screwed the Raptors enjoying his summer and deciding to have surgery before training camp. I don't think that's true. I don't think players. He already has his contract guaranteed, right? Like there was no risk for Bruce. Bruce was playing during the summer. Like, it's not easy to get a surgery. It's tough to get a surgery. I couldn't. I don't think I can be that cynical to think that a player is like playing around with surgery like that. I know players in the past, like Ben Simmons was one of them. Some players have threatened surgery, but I don't think that was the situation with Bruce. Sometimes you try and get healthy, and you just can't get there, and you realize later on after a summer of playing, after a summer of trying to do it without surgery, you realize like to maintain your career, to get back to a certain level, you have to go under the knife. And I think that's probably the case more with Bruce. And Joseph Cassidy says here, man, Bruce cheering harder than anybody in the NBA. Bruce has been like and just cards on the table. I don't know Bruce. I've talked to Bruce like however many times. He's always been really kind to me, but like, I don't know the guy. He seems great. The players really like Bruce. He's very popular. He's very, very has a great impact on the locker room as well. So, I mean, I wouldn't cast those aspersions on him. I think like maybe we could pump the brakes on like the conspiracy, because again, it's his body. He probably tried to get it right and was like, damn, I have to get surgery. If I had to guess, Mark Zarelli says, I think Bruce, like KCP, they look good with Nuggets system with Jokic, but not so good outside of that system. I tell you what, brother, Jokic can make a lot of guys look good. Like Jokic, he's so good. He creates these massive gaps for players to play in. Like, you just step onto the Nuggets and it's like, can you make a layup? Can you run? Are you willing to exert effort on the court? Jokic will give you 3 layups a game, Calcino says Jokic, just like Lowry, makes people look good. Ain't that the truth, man? Very impressive stuff. But yeah, that's the Bruce Brown of it all and the Ochai of it all. Jamie with a good question and a Jonathan Mogbo question, which I do like, says, how would Mogbo's game need to develop in the coming few years for him to reach starter caliber? What would that player look like? Also, change my mind. Mogbo makes 3+ all defensive teams. Okay. I like that, Jamie. That is some excellent optimism. And I'll say before I answer this as well, 100 and some people in the chat, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to get 12K subscribers. S put it in chat. We're trying to grow the channel. And we think actually we've kind of figured it out. We think we're good at what we do. We want more people to watch it. We think there is a larger audience than we currently have. They just have to see us first. Liking the video, all that kind of stuff helps people see us. And you're watching. Hopefully you're liking it. Hopefully you want to see us do well too. That's the pitch. Mogbo, what does he need to develop? He has this really slick left to right crossover that usually comes in the crowded lane and goes to a right-handed finish. And he's been pretty good at beating a lot of bigs off the bounce in tight spaces with that cross. That hasn't been the case for the bigger areas of the court. That hasn't been the case when he's guarded by wings. His handle needs to improve. He's a very explosive player. He has a huge jump, huge second jump. We see he's one of the best offensive rebounders on the team, and percentage-wise, one of the better offensive rebounders in the league. Every ball is in play for Jonathan Mogbo. That's a great, great thing to have, and it's fueled by his athleticism and motor. That athleticism and motor, if given a handle, can become a pretty terrifying thing as a driver, because you look at this roster. Who is Jonathan Mogbo going to like take possessions from? Probably not a lot of guys. He's going to operate on the periphery for the however many years of his career. If somehow he becomes a star, which I don't know what the route to that is, it's so far down we can't even consider what's going on, right? But he'll be playing off of guys. He'll be attacking closeouts. He'll be, working in the dunker spot. He'll be making those 45 cuts and Maggette cuts. He'll be using himself off ball and being like athletic and burly and contesting on the glass. Like Josh Hart does it at a smaller rate, but just being a guy who's like in the mix everywhere. Jonathan Mogbo, if he has and why is Josh Hart one of the best transition players in the NBA? Because he has a really competent handle. He's able to push and finish at the rim. Jonathan Mogbo, to me, what could end up delivering him as a starter and allowing him to be like one of those awesome switch 3/4s who kind of like lock down, the 2 to the 4 position across however many games. I mean, he even steps out on ones point guard sometimes and it looks good. We loved watching those possessions where he guarded Anthony Edwards, of course, where he slides, chops feet, keeps contained, keeps the hand out in front, like really, really good defense. His handle, I think he could be a guy who, if he has a competent handle, make that 45 cut on the opposite side of the floor, get downhill, pound dribble, navigate with with the footwork, get to the rim. The stuff that makes him a starter, probably being like a passable corner 3-point shooter, being a total demon on defense, which I think there's a pretty straight line to that. He looks great right now. Helps you win the possession battle, which he will, and that is a new trend in the NBA. Like, a lot of teams are very obsessed about the possession battle right now. It's an in vogue thing. Like, even the turnover field goal percentage stuff is becoming like called into question in the like think tanks, the front offices around the league. There's a bunch of stuff going on with the NBA. Like, people are really trying to maximize things that were more or less unseen prior to this. And I mean, Mogbo, a handle helps a lot. It would elevate his driving skill a ton, and being able to finish at the glass on the move, because he does have that unique floater. 10 Comp says his floaters are a bit funky. Reminds me a little bit of Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes was a really tremendous floater shooter, and his also looked quite odd. Tim Waring says, gotta run, but you should talk about Scottie's 3-point shooting stats. We discussed 18% off the dribble, 38% assisted. Yeah, we'll go on this, just a quick thing. Like, yeah, Scottie struggled a ton on his pull-up triples this year, and he's been actually quite good on catch-and-shoot triples. That was, Tim and I talked about that over on Blue Sky. But Mogbo, I think, yeah, maintaining that defense is really important. And, yeah, starter, a lot of stuff has to happen for him to be a starter. Like, as Brad Farnan says, Mogbo picks up his dribble way too much. He does. He picks up his dribble really, really often, and it is because of that insecurity of his handle. That's something that really has to be paid attention to. And Fred Galang says, in Darko's system, it will be his passing as a big will be key. That's true, but he's not going to be getting those possessions unless he becomes an excellent screener. And he is not an excellent screener right now. He's actually had trouble planting screens because, again, being a big old bastard is very, very important to being a great screener. And Jonathan is quite small for the role that he's playing. That's why I think the Raptors see him as, like, they talk about him as kind of a wing, because they want to see him develop and emulate some of that. Pascal Siakam is a singular development story in the NBA. Nobody's like him. And also, like, Pascal came into the NBA. He was one of the highest usage, like highest volume mid-range shooters in all of college basketball before he made the leap to the NBA. So there was always going to be some potential for him to be like an off-the-ball guy. Mogbo, that isn't the case. Mogbo doesn't have any of those indicators prior. So Mogbo just has to have not unprecedented development, but he needs to get good at things that he's not good at. And that's dribbling, shooting. And I think, as Brad pointed out, like he picks up his dribble in bad spots. I think his decision-making is strong when he knows he's playing from a point of strength. So if his dribble gets better and he's more comfortable navigating those tight spaces with like a throw-ahead dribble into space and then a handoff, or a throw-ahead into space and then a floater, like that comfortability means that he'll be able to supply his play with better decision-making too. But right now, that insecurity in the dribble is driving a lot of bad decisions, I think. So, I mean, we'll see how all that goes. Spain pick and rolls, or Spain PNR says, Scottie's been having the guy or the weakest defender guarding the screen for him a lot. To my eye, he is facing a lot of hedging rather than switching, and oftentimes it flattens out rather than creating an advantage. What do you think about its effectiveness? That's a handle thing too. Like, hedge Scottie, if he's going to beat a hedge, somebody needs to cut against the hedge. Like, that's the whole benefit of Scottie, to my eye. It was what I asked Darko at his not introductory, like Darko's first media day. I asked him, because I had just finished watching all of Scottie's pick and roll possessions, and I was like, hey, what do you make of Scottie in the pick and roll? Because I wanted quotes for my piece. And he talked about how there's so much benefit to having a big, tall playmaker. And I agree with that, but a lot of the best pick and roll players are guys who have elite dribble packages, who get 2 feet in the paint and get the defense to contract in, and then they make decisions there either to the rim or to the corner, sometimes above the break if you're supported by good shooters above the break. Scottie can let the advantage that would come from his dribble pass. It's pretty rare for Scottie to let the advantage that comes from his passing go by without using it. But a hedge and recover where teams are doing a pretty good job of covering the man, and especially it depends on like if teams are tagging or something like that. But what I would have is if you see a team playing hedge and recover against Scottie, and I'm sure they talk about this in practice, but I would have some automatics. Like if you're on the wing and you see, okay, a team is going to hedge and recover, you can assume that maybe the guy who's defending you, if let's say Jakob is or whoever's guarding the screen man in that, will kind of lean towards the play because they don't want to allow that pass to the roll man. So trigger an automatic cut, go basket cut straight away, 45 probably, right? See what happens. And then if that doesn't work, you can filter probably into pistol from the corner or something like that. You can run Chicago out of the corner immediately. You can run Miami actions out of the corner immediately. You can do all that kind of stuff if you want. You just have to be a little bit more heady working off ball. Now, there are some offenses that guys just get to sit and wait, and they get to, lift and drift out of the corner and into it. And that's what you do as a weak side guy. But in the Raptors offense, that isn't how they operate. You have to be willing to screen off ball. You have to be willing to make more cuts, and you have to be more heady in where you receive the ball. That's partially because of who their coach is, Darko, and who their star is, Scottie Barnes. When RJ runs pick and roll, it's a little bit more normative. You get more of those regular, RJ can drag out the hedge man and he can create like a short roll opportunity where you're playing with a man advantage. RJ can reroute and rescreen and get 2 feet in the paint and create like a corner three from, under the basket to baseline. Like that's more normative creation. But Scottie is the star of the team. He's the big star. His impact metrics are massive. He's put up these huge numbers and all that kind of stuff. And he is very clearly the guy that the Raptors identify as like, he's the man, he's the guy. So you have to, as the off-ball player, kind of attune yourself to what Scottie needs for some of his creation. And I think that's going to be more cutting. I think that the Raptors have to give him a little bit more help. And that's my idea of flattening it out. As far as like what Scottie can do, as far as just like to beat that himself, man, blow up that hedge. Blow up that hedge, man. I think that Scottie, like if someone tries to hedge out on you, meet them. Like put your shoulder into them. Do they want to switch? And if they're hedging, are they ready to switch? Go put a body on them. See if they want to stick with you or if they want to get back. Because if they try and stick with you, they're probably going to be out of position a little bit because they're hedging and they know they want to get back. So press that issue, try and get downhill. And if Scottie is also like, if it becomes a switch, it becomes a switch. You're in a similar place. But I'd like to see him test more of those actions with his dribble because he needs those development reps. He hasn't had an elite driving season in his career yet. He's had elite driving games. We've seen how overwhelming it can be at times, but it hasn't been that diverse that he's able to change and see what the defense is doing so that he's always such a big driving presence. It needs work. And it can become elite, but it isn't yet. And we need to see more of those reps to see what happens there. That feels like a podcast. A podcast, That feels pretty good. We talked for about an hour. How's that feel, everybody? Thank you for listening. I think that's about it. The yapping about tanking at the start, which I think I went to the film room, but I'm sure that spurred on an argument that spanned about 15 minutes in the chat. The film room, I hope that everybody enjoyed it. When I clip it and put it out as its own video later, please watch it again and like it and everything for the growth of the channel and for people who don't want to tune into all the yapping. But as far as like enjoy the film rooms and stuff like that, they can get it injected directly there. And, Coco says, sigh to tanking talk. Yeah, I know. But honestly, like you could see it in chat. Everybody is there. There are two factions, right? One is like so staunchly tank. And, there, to my eye, there's like an elitism about tank fans. They're like, oh, you're so like they think everyone else is so stupid. Like that's how the tanking stuff is communicated. I see it all the time. So I like having that conversation of trying to like widen it with more nuance. Um, to widen it with more nuance, but also like, some people I think hand wave away some aspects of tanking too easily. Sometimes it can be advantageous. I mean, the Raptors, to my eye, I mean, they hit the eject button the year before they got Scottie. They traded Norm. Everybody was injured. Pascal had a surgery. Like, a bunch of stuff happened, and then all of a sudden Scottie Barnes is on the team, and now we've been talking about Scottie Barnes for 4 years or three years, and he's the future of the team, whether it's as the one or the two or whatever the hell happens. He's a big deal. He's a max player. So there are aspects of it that works, and it can be advantageous, and you can see clear lines of when, like, damn, Chet Holmgren, it's really nice to have him on the Thunder. But also you get to push back and say, well, nobody tanked for Shea, and he's the best player in the world, maybe, besides, like, maybe Jokic, maybe on whoever you think it is. But like, I don't like the elitism around around the conversation, which is why I like to have and push back a little bit. It's like, why is it like this? But anyway, that's where I'm at. That's what we talked about. Bruce Brown, Ochai Agbaji, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've enjoyed speaking to you. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff before you get out of here. Comment, it helps everything. You know what to do. Thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed day, and goodbye. Podcast.